Hello.
We back.
Indeed.
Ladies and
No.
Tyler.
gentlemen, roosters and hens and everything else is back. We are down one. What's going on?
Yeah, you
What did I
were
do?
delayed.
You were gone, bud.
Already?
Yeah.
Your internet connection is unstable. Are you kidding me?
Good
Am I
job.
back?
Right up. Yeah, it's very perfect.
Welcome to the
Okay.
Cock Talk podcast.
Welcome. And it's not an episode of Cock Talk without some kind of damn technical difficulty starting it off. I swear to God. And there I am. I see myself now on the replay, frozen. But here I am now, and we're back. We are down one tonight, but up another. Dad, Dave, Pecking Order Racing is out tonight. But as always, from the Coop Collective, I am Tyler at MBF Express. Now it looks like I'm normal, which is great. We have our trusty producer, Josh at Grateful Coops, leading us along the way. The man with the theories, Blake at Waddle Waddle Racing, and the man of the hour, Tyler Klose from knowyourwallet.io. They're going to be bringing us all the information we need on our chickens moving forward. Obviously, from the much well-received Know Your Horses from Zed, now bringing us quite the tool that we'll be getting into tonight, and I'm sure all of us have been obsessing over. I know I have. It's already on my favorites page, and I swear to God I'm there more often than I am on Chicken Derby. But gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Doing great.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you for having me, everybody.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. I know this is am I gone again?
You just
you're
sound
back.
like you
About
got
the time you
auto-tuned
say, "Are you
engaged.
gone again?" About the time you realize it is about the time you come back.
33 weeks of doing this, and we never have a signal difficulty. And ever since the Fledge Wedge showed up, it screwed everything up. So I'm still blaming you at Fledge. I don't care if you're not here yet. I know you'll be here in a few minutes in the chat. I will blame you when I see you. But anyway, Tyler, it's a pleasure to have you on. There's another Tyler on the show now. We named someone else Better Blake before. I couldn't come up with an alliteration yet.
Better
you,
Tyler Racing.
No.
Perfect.
It's got to be alliteration. But yeah, this is I'm happy to have you on. Happy to know your wallet and everything.
Hey, you just shut off for a bit and come back.
Trying to.
Yeah, you're freezing up.
You're freezing up bad.
Okay, this is frustrating.
That's all right.
Should I
your
kick
router.
out and come back in?
Yeah,
All
unplug
right.
your router.
Hey,
come back.
and why don't we talk about the dev blog? Why he is resetting, and we can just skip
Frustrating.
past that part.
Okay, way back.
So I'll just read the dev blog.
Perfect.
Okay, well, I'll start this week off with the dev blog.
Improvise. Why not?
Give me a sec to fix this. Look at that nice little everybody switching places on me, doing this. Fuck it, we'll do it live. All right.
Well, while he's gone, there we go.
Dev blog. Right. So, hello, chicken fans, and hello to the 5,000. Oh my gosh. 4,000. I'm all flustered. This is all wrong. 4,512 different chickens that ran in races this week in our open beta. It has been a great opening week of open beta with so many new users and new chickens joining the races. We broke over $50,000 won away in prize money this week across 1,657 races. The most popular distance was 120 meter. It was ran 257 times, and the most popular terrain was a tie between snow and sand, which was ran 212 times each. 510 free races were ran, and the biggest single payout was $852 in the $100 wake, which you can watch in the link below. I'd have to guess
Some of those free
Diamond
ones.
Hands or one of those birds won that race. GameStop's 100 Lizard.
Florida Lee.
Yeah.
I'll say it for you.
With the launch of Open Beta, the introduction of distance preference and update to the white pages, and so many new users, a lot of discussion has been had throughout the Discord. CDA and I have both kept a close eye on them, as we love to know what you're thinking. One problem was that often mentioned was repetitive occurrence of some of the races. The sub $5 races are the most heavily ran, and we appreciate it gets boring seeing the same ones pop up again and again. They've added 7 new races to the sub $5 pool yesterday and will continue to do more with time. There we go.
Soon, every distance.
Yes, I'm hoping, because it's an eternity sitting there waiting for a certain track and terrain to pop up, and man,
especially if you've got a bird clocked in that like where you want to run it, right? I think that's
so what's crazy is speaking on that right there. I've got a chicken that I think is a snowbird, right? Because it's got almost a 50% podium rate on this terrain through like 30 some races, but he hasn't won very much. He keeps getting third and second. And there's one distance that I haven't ran because I haven't seen it, and that is 100 meters. 100 meters snow. Just don't see them.
Yeah.
So,
well, and once they're all up, like if they're all available, or at least if they pop up multiple times in a day.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure I missed some, but you know what I mean? I just don't see them at the frequency that you see other terrains and stuff that pop up throughout the day. So yeah, they added 7 new to the $5 pool, and they'll continue to add more. Soon every distance and terrain combination will be available in that category. Another element that has seen a lot of discussion is the pecking orders and ranking. I hope Tyler jumps in real soon back, because I'm sure this is a hot topic. This has been a very hot topic in the Coop Collective chat and in the main chat. Hi, Tyler.
Perfect timing.
Hello.
Hi, you're back.
Yeah, you sound good.
Josh, you're just doing this to steal the driver's spot from me. I know it. It was a targeted attack on my internet.
No, we waited for you because we were actually he was actually just saying this is a point where you probably have some input. So good timing.
I haven't heard any of it. So what's going on?
No, we just were reading the
dev blog, and awesome. We just got to the part where the hot discussion in the last week or so in between our chat and I'm sure other chats and the Chicken Coop chat has been the pecking order and ranking. Many people have expressed concern with the current system for many different reasons, and a lot of valid points have been raised. The ranking system and initial pecking order points were distributed based on the total distribution of 33,333 chickens. So if all the chickens were ran equally, it would balance out nicely and every chicken would be raceable. However, that has clearly not been the case. As you can see with this chart here, they've mapped out the unique chickens ran across each per population of heritage. And it's quite the opposite of what you would expect with all of these chickens running. I mean, 33% of the 100 Saramas ran. That is 11 of the 33. And we said that last week on the show. Oh, and they're running a lot. And they're taking my ETH when I get in A class.
All of it. Yeah. My 94 Saramas are not appreciative of being in A class with these 100s.
Mine either.
Yeah.
But that may soon change. But yeah, the numbers are quite, staggering. As you can see, not many of the lower end Dorkings have been raced, and probably rightfully so. I've been running my 93 Dorking Jackie Daytona a lot, and quite frankly, I'm not very impressed.
Not yet.
It's nothing. There was one little nugget that we will get into later that might be able to help Jackie down the road. And
next paragraph, actually. I think.
Yeah. After we get through this next part. So what this table shows is through all the races this week, Monday to Thursday, the number of unique chickens ran over their population. For example, there are 33 100 Saramas. Yep, we went through that. Distribution is leaning very heavily towards the Saramas, followed by the Sultans, high Lackenvelders, and hardly any Dorks. This caused some of the top-end chickens to end up in pecking order C, which should be the home for the lower rank ones. That's kind of a little bit of a tell there.
Yeah, they think there's too many top birds.
Well,
probably are in
the lower ranked birds.
Well, definitely if they're
should be in the C class.
Yeah, but they're definitely, if they're saying that some of the top end birds have fallen all the way down to C, that means B is definitely stacked higher than what they think too. So I think I've been saying I knew from the first get-go that we needed 5 classes. And you go back a few episodes, I think
Yeah,
I
you were
brought it
pushing
up.
for that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just makes the most sense because I could see how they're starting to stagger out. So I'm looking forward to seeing how, and maybe instead of having now, maybe C class is the better, 93s, 94s. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do feel like we looked at the lower classes, started to have a little bit of improvement. C class is in pretty good shape. If you're in C class, there's a pretty good parity moving there. B class is interesting. It's kind of all over the place, but A is just, you can't really get a lot of good data in A. I actually had a 97 Sarama win this morning, and then I went and checked who I was up against, and there were 0 100 Saramas. There was no 99 Saramas. It all looked like maybe what A will look like next week when we get to this next paragraph here.
Right.
So go ahead and run that off, Josh, and then we'll start.
So therefore, they will be implementing 2 new pecking orders to help ease the distribution. This was something that we planned to do at some point anyway, but we wanted to wait until our user base was larger, as the new pecking orders would inevitably cause races to fill slower. But races are filling comfortably fast enough to be worth it. So keep an eye out for D and S pecking order races soon, which would be the D class and super class for all those hundreds and birds that I wish I owned.
Which was another community suggestion for the S class, right? So another cool thing that, as we always say, they listen to things that anybody says, that if it's a good idea and good thought, they'll more than willing to implement it in the game.
I honestly think this will work because you get those. Those hundreds are still going to be good birds. It's just going to force those owners to have to be a little more picky about where they race them once they're in the S class, because then they're going to be up against the best of the best all the time, and you're going to have that distance and terrain preference dialed in. Or it's just going to be, you guys will just be trading ETH back and forth and everybody will break even, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't know. But what that does then is it's really going to open up the A class, and a lot of these birds that you feel are trapped in A. Like I have my 94s and my 97 Sultans. I feel like they're trapped in A class because all they ever finish is between 4th and 7th, and I can't get them out of A. I can't win anything. I'm just donating money, trying to get them out, and I'm not really getting any good data out of it because they're not going to compete with those top-end birds in any terrain, like in any scenario. I might get an outlier 3rd place or something, but...
So to loop Tyler in here, this is where the tool over at knowyourwallet.io is really helpful for me. It's triggering. When I just check out my B and C ROI, I really like that. But then my A class ROI hurts quite a bit. But one of the obviously we would have rolled in just a little bit more smoothly if my internet connection cooperated today. But one of the big things on the knowyourwallet.io is obviously the ability to go back as far as closed beta to take a look at some of your data. And one of the topics that I know people have been talking about is just about how we want this data to be kind of represented, because a lot of us kind of feel like everything we've brought in right now is kind of scrambled trash because we can't quite differentiate it based on how we're looking. So what do you guys have planned as far as how it's going to look for closed beta, open beta, and then obviously anything moving forward? Because it is kind of interesting that we're having different segments broken down right now, and the data is going to look different substantially based on each one of these jumps.
Hey, Tyler.
Yes.
We're still doing the dev blog.
No, I know, but
but we're looping in. He hasn't. Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah. So I kind of heard a lot from the community feedback that a lot of people want the data wiped clean. I tend to kind of disagree about wiping it clean entirely, just because there's a lot of people who have collected that data, and a lot of people who wouldn't, have the means to. I think they wiped it clean from the site. So like, even if you wanted it today, there's not any place you can get it. So I don't feel comfortable having like that edge and not sharing that with everybody. So I want to have that data out there for everyone. I don't think it's not going to show up in any of the default stats. Like when I go into a chickens page, there's probably going to be a separate tab that says archive races. And from there, we're probably going to have another section in the future, right? We're going to have that closed beta section, which is what we just went through. We're going to have this open beta section. And the second talents are introduced, the game's going to change again.
Yep.
Yeah.
So not to say that none of this information is useful. It may be misleading. I don't know, but I think it's important that the data is there for everybody to look at if they choose to try to make whatever inferences they want. So like by default, you probably won't see any of that info. You're going to have to like go dig it up, but it will be there and it'll be easily accessible for everyone to see.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think that's exactly what it needs to be. Because like, I mean, you and I talked about this in the main Chicken Coop chat just briefly. It was just like, we don't want this to be available to some people for a little while and then it's gone, you know, and this gives everyone the opportunity to go and check it out if they want to, and then do what they will with it. You know, that way, we don't know if this data means anything yet, but it very well could once we get a full sample size of everything. So I think that's perfect.
I said before during closed beta that it felt to me like I only had 20% of my data. I don't think it's useless, but I don't think it's useful either yet. And I think that's smart what you guys are doing and the fairest way to do it. I like the ideas of breaking them up into the subsections, you know, down the road. So anybody that wants to go back and look can see, okay, well, how'd this bird do through all the races, right? Well, because if they did really good in the closed beta, chances are you probably got a good bird because those races were stacked, right? So
besides Josh's Casey Jones.
But to the same point, then some of those birds that got beat in closed beta, right? They may still be good racers because those races were stacked. So
yeah,
I think it works both ways. And that's why having the data there lets each individual person that's going to go in and buy a bird potentially gives them as much ammo to make their best decision. Everybody buys different. So
yeah.
Right.
I don't know what happened.
Like without the talent and stuff, like I kind of think that what's going on now is what you'd call like the raw talent of the chicken, right? Like the second talent's get introduced, things can get crazy, but everyone's gonna have different talents that have different rarities, but right now that's not part of the game. No one has any special weapons, so it's just how good can your chicken run on certain terrains at certain distances. I did want to ask you guys something actually. Like I picked up in the Discord that people are saying that distance wasn't turned on before, but I think when I started collecting the data, I had the assumption that it was, but
we did kind of assume at first that distance was in the calc because we were all tracking it. So we just kind of figured that if terrain and distance would be implemented at the same time. However, they did state after the fact that distance wasn't being calculated until just recently. So the most recent update this week was basically distance being added in. Whereas next week or the week after might be the 5 classes. So every week that data that we had before is not as good. You have to retest. And so
I've even noticed that with just racing today, and it's a small sample size, of course, but I thought it was my racer did well on 120 dirt. I'm like, okay, it's either dirt or 120. So I started with dirt and they won another one. I was like, okay, they won a 140. And then I ran 15 and they podiumed and won. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's not dirt. Maybe it's 120. And then I started running some 120s and there was more success. So it's like, you're at the point now where even though I thought their preference was dirt in closed beta, now it looks like it might be 120. And we've had some interest. This has been an interesting way to kind of like, at one point we're just testing for terrain, and then the next point we're testing for terrain plus distance. And it's I think in the end it could really be helpful to see the whole scope of that and go back and be like, okay, maybe I can figure out my proper terrain now that I know the distance has been put in. So that's definitely changed some stuff, and it's made a couple people kind of feel lost on their birds. But we're going to see another shift, I think, next week when these new pecking orders drop in.
Yeah, I'll get it. So do you guys plan on doing more like sorting capabilities in the future, Tyler, with your site and being able, because with the variables there, as we were kind of talking off air, there's so many more different variables in Chicken Derby than say like a Z where there's just a few. So I think that for the stat heads out there that want to dive deep into the data, I think being able to sort through those is a massive thing to be able to do.
Yeah, the one thing we haven't really touched on so far, I think, is like finish position sorting. Well, there's actually no sorting for probably either like the distances, but there is filtering, so you can like kind of lock in on a range you want. But if say like you wanted to like see all your races and sort them, you know, by distance, so it starts at 100, goes all the way up to 200. I don't think that's there. Someone's been asking for being able to sort the race history based on finish position. So you see all the first group together, all the seconds group together. All these things make a ton of sense. Just haven't quite gotten to that yet, but we'll try to give you like, and just ask me what, you know, kind of ways you want to slice and dice data, and I'll provide it to you. I'm pretty open with implementing things that people are asking for, because if chances are if you need it, everyone else wants it too, but they're just not saying it, you know.
One thing I'd like to see, just since you bring that up, when you're filtering in, like when I go in and I filter between A and B pecking orders, when I'm filtering on a bird, just to kind of look and see where I can dial it in. Is there a way to get the squares with the distance and terrain and the matrix to pop up with when you filter?
Yeah, I could definitely do. I think I intentionally got rid of it because I didn't want. I forget why. So I think it kind of got like too sparse of a matrix. I wanted people to be able to see the whole thing, but that definitely makes sense because like as you know, if you're in a lower pecking order, you might be able to dominate like outside your spectrum of distance preference or outside your spectrum of terrain preference. But as you're going against people who are locked and loaded on their preferences, you also need to get locked and loaded on yours. So that disparity in, you know, how quickly you go from finishing in the podium to how quickly you finish in the back, like that might be the big change.
Honestly, that's the thing I was thinking is that when I was looking at my one bird that just kills it in B class but can't really get anything done in A, I was like, man, I really wish I could just break this up and see the A class and break that up completely so I can just make that a downclassing setup and then keep the B class where I'm hitting all the right spots. So I think that's perfect. And obviously the more data we get, the more that'll kind of fill out. I understand just when you first loaded it up, it makes sense just to get all out there, especially since, you know, everyone's taking their shots right now. We don't really know yet. We're getting closer, but we're still taking our shots. We're still trying to ride our convictions out. We have to break some of those convictions still too.
The reason why we're taking a lot of shots too is because the devs have come out and specifically said that everything basically means something. Well, we just don't know what means towards racing yet, right? And what's going to mean towards breeding. Well, if eyes mean something towards racing, having the ability to see that data or comb and waddle or beat color or whatever these different traits are, if they're going to have an impact, having the ability to see that and sort through that, I think is going to be able to give that person a better edge, say, than the next.
Yeah, that's one thing I haven't really considered is how cosmetics may affect racing. I assumed it wouldn't, but I guess that's not.
They have specifically said that.
Since Tyler went to open the rabbit hole up,
I went rogue again.
Yeah, we gotta jump back into the dev blog so we can finish
up the dev blog and then we'll
just
get
let you guys go.
Yeah, sounds good. Finish it up, Josh. I'll shut up. I'll mute my microphone. That way I can't interrupt you.
Help.
I actually thought we were done with the dev blog.
There's a little bit more left.
There's more of the dev blog.
I popped back in and Tyler had not said anything since I popped back in. And I was like, I need to get him back in here. I have no idea what's happening. So I took over again. But yeah, Josh, please finish it up.
Just want to get it finished so we don't have to try and seg back into it later. So yeah, D and S classes will be implemented next week. Be on the lookout for that. We're hoping that'll be tomorrow morning, Monday. Also, here's a sneak peek at a new feature that they're implemented last week on Friday, which I think is awesome.
This is really awesome.
Yeah, I love
this. Again, we've asked for, communities asked for it, right?
When the race is close, it will engage. The race will finish, but if the race was close enough, it will engage an instant replay of the finish. And what's funny is when it pops the number up on the bird, I don't know if you guys have had the sound on, but it clucks.
Pop, pop, pop. Yep. Simple, but it works.
But yeah, that's been something that's been asked for and something that they wanted to deliver for a while now. These slow motion replays will trigger whenever there's a close finish between podium chickens at the end of the race. It isn't quite finished yet, but we'll get to it once we're happy with it. So yeah,
go ahead. The whole scope of these races, that just adds a touch because you're going to see, remember those cut-in scenes of the talents that we saw in that one race?
You're
going to have all that. Each race is going to be like a little show. right? It's not only a race. We've just seen the race so far.
Yeah.
Next is the show, right? And so this adds to that viewing.
Yeah, I'll admit I've been doing a lot of it on my phone. It's just easier to do that when I'm entering races, and I'm not watching a lot of the races right now. I'm just checking the data and seeing how they do. When the talent showed up and all that animation happens, I almost feel like you have to, because you need to know when your talent goes off, and that and how those things are correlating in. So yeah, once that starts, I know they've said multiple times that they are very interested in making this have all kinds of bells and whistles and different sounds and all kinds of cuts. And I'm not sure if you guys got to this earlier before when I was cut off, but we were talking with Tyler beforehand about those differences between what Zed's going for and what Chicken Derby's going for. And they're very much creating a fun, silly arcade game here, whereas Zed is sleek and futuristic and very, refined looking. And that's why these things can still very much coexist and work, because they're very different games all in all, which I know, Tyler, you were getting to a little bit before. So now that we've wrapped up the dev blog a little bit, that's it, Josh. We're all situated there, right?
Yes, but I do want to jump back to one quick thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
This was a biggie. With the chat, we were talking. I don't remember who brought it up, but I think GameStop and some others were talking about it in the beta channel. And some questions were asked, and then I just my blunt ways just straight asked the question that has been bothering everybody for months now. And that is, my question was, so currently as it stands, do traits like robot, vampire, lizard eyes, or black base body or anything like that have any effect on the race outcome? The answer right now, no. With talents, some traits will have an effect, but not all. They are not going to be useless or just for aesthetics.
So everything has some meaning, but only some of them are going to be, as we said, I believe, a defense to talents.
Yeah. The rest, most likely, breeding is my best
or
guess
racing
there,
that we're already seeing implemented. Right?
Well, he said right now, no. He said currently as is, right now, these traits don't do anything.
So when talents come in, some of them will.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe, and I wonder if he was answering specifically to your ones that you mentioned, which were more of the rare cosmetics. I wonder how that question would look if eyes or comb and waddle and beak color mean anything today. I wonder how that would be answered. If that's already implemented into racing.
My guess is still probably no.
So we're just running right now then off straight perfection.
Yep, like Tyler
heritage.
said, the raw talents of them. I think that really sums that up well.
Just heritage and perfection is basically all we're racing off of right now.
Yep, and then preferences. Yep, track preference and
distance preference, heritage.
Well, but that would come down to your heritage
consistency
only
that we don't see.
Sure.
Too.
And if track preference has to do with your eyes or your beak or your comb and waddle, then that means it's implemented now.
Right? If it is, yeah. I mean, we don't know, and that's the interesting part there. Yeah, the tinfoil. There's the tinfoil sounder. Yeah, we don't know in that regard. But this was a big one because we had lots of discussions, and I've always been on team these things will matter.
Yes.
There was one thing from the tutorial that stood out to me, and it's when they said Saramas are hard to hit. And if they can make Saramas hard to hit, I can only imagine that has to do with talents. And if they can correlate that into the game, then why couldn't they have all these other things have some type of determination to the race outcome? So, Tyler, as you were wondering before, it seems like these things are going to matter. Right. And that probably brings a whole nother, your wheels are probably already spinning about how to get that portrayed properly on the site, I bet.
Yeah, because there's just so many different ways and combinations now, right? So not only does if you're waddle or beak color or whatever matters, right? Like, is it a combination of heritage and eyes or a heritage and beak or like what are?
Well, that's just it, because they've got heritage comb and waddle, which are heritage specific. They've got heritage specific base bodies that are only on certain breed or certain heritages, like. Though if those things matter, like that is, I can't wait.
Let me say this: the only reason
that's a lot of stuff to cram.
And I've said this before. The only reason I know somebody just commented beak waddle color affecting performance would be silly. However, the only reason I think that comb and waddle even means anything is because if you go back to some of the early breeding teases that they sent out, the baby had a different comb and wattle. So if they're going to be different colors, if they didn't have a meaning, why make them different colors? It doesn't look cooler to have a black comb and a red wattle. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Well, the performance, like I think what Kent might be meaning there is just like the performance is what we're seeing right now. You know, maybe it has something to do with down the line when we see the way that certain traits are sent. Maybe if you really start looking at it, the Sarama has the teal comb and wattle, and that's its rare comb and wattle. Right. Maybe the teal comb and wattle has a better chance of sending its better characteristics down the line in breeding. And if that's the case, then that's huge. So we still are looking at, and I've kind of always thought the rarer stuff is probably going to have effect. The common stuff, that might be too much. Mm-hmm. If the common stuff, like the difference between a beauty eyes and a determined eyes, that is probably going a little too far in the just the strict trying to code something like that. But if you're just looking at the stuff that's rare, like we look at robots and black chickens have 300 each. I feel like that has to be 100. Some type of event.
But here's the question. But how do you separate 100 Sarama? How do you separate 1,200 Saramas in a race? What separates them from finishing even? It's got to be something else built into it.
Right.
There's got to be something.
They don't all have the same terrain preference and distance preference too. That's
right, because something's different. Right. The reason why they don't have that is because something makes them different.
Fair.
What makes them different?
Why does it have to be attached to a aesthetic though? Couldn't it just be baked into the underlying, like kind of like the consistency? Like, does the consistency have to be tied to an attribute, or could they all, in theory, look exactly the same? I mean, have underlying DNA,
I think the consistency is probably going to be a randomized factor. I think the other ones probably lean. Why create Why create all the different styles of everything if they're not going to have a meaning? It's why I go back to Zed. Why does Zed only has the same damn looking horse, except they're a different color. Every horse looks the same, except they're a different color. There's no different eyes, no different characteristics, no different sizes.
Well, a lot of that is
the same horse.
A lot of that is just for fun.
What I'm saying is, my point is why go through all the hassle of creating 12 different traits with each of them that have their own so many different differences? You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Why go through the trouble of doing that if it's not going to mean anything? We would just have bare chickens. You can throw a hat on them. You can put a tie on it. You can put glasses on it.
That stuff's coming. That's the difference.
That's the cosmetic. That's the cosmetic
that's going to make them different, look different too. I mean,
that's it.
You might be right, and maybe we are underestimating just the magnitude of.
The devs are listening. Going to listen to this and just laughing their asses off.
I know, but yeah, but still, that's why. I mean, not to just turn it into a total shill. We know these tools are going to matter, and that's why that's why having a Tyler on to talk about this stuff is big, because if it's that complicated, then we're all going to need ourselves just.
We need the tools for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Fledge is here. There you go.
I mean, you got to think though. Like I was saying long ago, like with the heritage base bodies, like say a cherry dusk Sarama that's got a teal comb and wattle. That's a full on purebred chicken in my eyes, right? So I mean that thing's probably going to be a good.
Tell me that teal comb and wattle don't mean
breeder, huh?
I don't know. Currently my cherry dusk teal comb and wattle sucks, and it's a 95. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean in Zed they have like the different classes, like coat color groups, and they also have different rarities, and to me I don't care about them at all, because it doesn't have any impact on racing. Like their lore says that they do, but
Adam from Poseidon talked about that. Yeah, they people just like went crazy and they're trying to figure that stuff out, and they realized that nope.
So
it didn't really matter. Which I think they want to do differently.
Purchase was a rare coat, I think, because I thought they would hold value. Like some of them will always hold value, because when breeding and stuff comes, like people want like a robot chicken, like they're cool looking. Like why would you not want one of them? But maybe it will have impact on like being able to defend certain talents and fight certain things off. But like in terms of aesthetics, like to me, like my personal approach to this game is to ignore aesthetics. Like they don't matter to me at all until I can prove otherwise. I just know exactly what's out there. I assume that terrain was turned on, and I assumed distance was, but I was wrong about that. So like just focusing on what the data tells you, and then, kind of experiment, slicing and dicing it as things go on. But I think we have too much of a sample size to focus on these aesthetic attributes, right? Like a lot of people are still probably still trying to figure out what their terrain preferences are.
Yeah, because
I've had wildly different results in my own experience.
Like almost no discernible advantage from a black chicken or a robot yet. There's been robots in C class that are just 92 dorkings. So it's like, and I haven't seen anything yet in that regard. So hopefully we're surprised.
That's the thing. I'm the big optimist. I feel like they want, this would be the way to differentiate yourself from Zed. And if you want to be the Mario Kart game or the arcade style type game, you need to have stuff like that in the game that makes it different, that makes every chicken unique and different, that it, you know what I mean? And not that it's going to have massive impacts on the game. What's that?
So in terms of differentiating yourself from Zed, like I honestly think the talents are enough. Like at least as a starting point, like you don't have to go crazy in depth with it, but like to me, that's what's getting me most excited about what's to come. And like I've been super excited with all their teaser videos of how they've been progressing on the animations and how well they've been kind of like iterating along, going from the closed beta that I wasn't in until they opened it up to the second wave that I was able to enter into. Like they're just humming along and marching along, and the second that the talents are added, I think people are going to get super excited. Because right now it seems like just a funny Zed run, but like the second that the talents come in, it's just going to be more than that, right? Like it's going to be its own game with its own characteristics that truly makes it unique, as opposed to just being like a silly copy of Zed is kind of like the first reaction people had when it came out, right?
And that's a fair point, because at this moment, us hardcores are going nuts, and I've raced over 1,000 times hoping that, some of this data would make sense for me down the line, and who knows, maybe it will, maybe it won't. But I've had fun doing it regardless. But still, I think you're right. As soon as they see that thing that legitimately differentiates it, and that's the talents, that's when this game really becomes something that people, because I know a lot of people come in and they want to know details. They ask, like, what are the tools? What can we use? And it's like, well, here's all the data. Here's the sites we're using. But we still don't have that one large part of it that's going to change everything. And it just so happens that's how I made most of my Coop, was based on talents. So, and everyone listening knows that. Everyone listening knows that.
Gotta play the long game.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that, like, when they do implement anything that they said right there, cosmetics won't be worthless. Essentially, I can't imagine them being like super overpowering. That they're gonna make like vampire chickens just dominant or something like that. But if it's a +1 to an attribute somewhere within the code, you know what I mean? That's still better than nothing. So.
There was even speculation that like vampires might like bite people next to them. That maybe that's a bit much. That would be kind of crazy if they go that deep, and they could keep surprising us. As Tyler alluded to on air and was talking off air, just the amount of detail that these guys have really got into this system, and the way that they are taking their time and building it out the right way. And just seeing, we're watching this thing go so slowly from its first steps and moving forward. But if we went back to those first couple races, we'd be blown away by how much better they look now. So I feel like it's all there, and they could surprise us. They really could surprise us with what's to come, because that is really where the differentiation comes, and it becomes its own standalone game.
Yeah,
I agree.
Okay, so now that I killed the chat on that one, just kidding. Okay, so
I got distracted by the white box on the screen.
Oh, the white box did show up. That's something happened there,
that's
Josh.
My bad.
That's all good. Okay, so we have knocked out the dev blog and that spicy little nugget about the cosmetics, not cosmetics, all the traits. And are not just aesthetic fixes, and that's a huge part of it. Getting into this week of racing, pretty smooth all in all, with the exception of the one mishap we had with a old employee that I think we've all kind of been over and figured out.
A disgruntled employee.
Yes, something weird happened there. For the uninitiated, pretty simple. Someone that was working with the team had some insider information and knew a little bit about the system, and they tried to run a really, quite frankly, amateur hack and got away with what, $900? I think it was.
And I stole a couple of their tries.
you jumped in and grabbed one or two of those.
I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. There's so many free races. This is too good to be true.
Right.
And it was.
And to find out that it was just something internal, that they actually legitimately found the person and the whole bit, and that's been taken care of. It made me actually feel a lot better that it wasn't some obvious issue that an external force saw and took advantage of, and it was instead something internal. With the exception of that, we had a really smooth week until just now. Racing has been down for a bit, although we did have CDN come in and say that they've identified what the problem is and they're fixing that. Otherwise, we've been racing day and night right now, and it looks really strong. And hopefully with this new change in the pecking order, we even see even more next week. What was it, about 4,900 birds total have raced so far?
Yeah, like something like that.
Yeah, it's still not a big enough sample size to really understand the gravity of the entire game yet.
Well, I'll tell my Coop, for example, I went from running every bird in the closed beta to one bird now this last week. So I might open up and race a few more birds now that they have 5 classes. Again, I didn't tired of throwing my money away, especially when my birds are getting dominated in higher classes. So
now, obviously, with March Madness going on right now and everything, I know a lot of people have been paying attention, probably just half clicking and putting them in and whatnot. But how much racing since open beta have you done, Tyler? Have you really dived in yet, or are you still focusing on just the creation of the tool and whatnot?
No, honestly, so like this week, Zed kind of like ramped up a lot of their work. I actually ended up spending some time with their new breeding algorithm yesterday. I've ran, I think, a couple of chick races, but I haven't gotten too far into it yet. I'm actually going to take like the step back approach and try to see what has changed with other chickens. Like look at some of the ones that names that I recognize, like Egonomics, and see like what has changed from the open beta to the closed beta. Diamond Hands, like what's changed from him, and see if there's anything I can do. Try to do it objectively, because the second you put your own chicken in, like you are rooting for it to do certain things, like you have a mindset of what you think how it should be performing, like your theory that maybe it's a snow sprinter, like these kinds of things distort you. Like one sample size will make you go down the wrong rabbit hole. So I'm trying to take like the other approach of not touching the game, letting other people run, and then analyzing the changes that I see on their part, and try to make like more generalized theories that I can then test with the different chickens I have. Cause like I haven't really looked too much into perfection scores. Like one thing I'm really curious about is like, okay, there's 100 Sarama, which is probably the best chicken in the game, but like, is 100 Sultan better than an 80 or 98 Sarama? Like where does that threshold drop off? Is 100 Sultan worse than the 90 Sarama? If not, then like where does that kind of crossover point happen? Is it consistent from chicken to chicken? Like I'm trying to take like a more generalized view of it. Because a lot of people from Zed are asking me questions like, what kind of chicken should I be buying? And I don't really know the answer to that. Like if I see 2 for the same price, which one's better? I honestly don't have a clue.
Right.
So I'm trying to like
either do we
things out. And that's kind of part of the game.
That's a really good point, because you said Egonomics, that's a 100 Lakenvelder, and then you were wondering about 100 Sultans. One of the most profitable birds in the game, owned by Hems, is Memory Reset, and that's a 100 White Beak Sultan. So, and they just so happen to have won a couple big races. So we really don't know in that regard yet. And that was the one thing I noticed just lately, is that most people that do pop into the main chat kind of just want to know, like, what should I be focusing on? And we're not there yet. So you're probably better off.
Not even close. Because I mean, think of like birds like Diamond Hands. That's 100 Lakenvelder robot. It was a second and third place machine in closed beta. Well, now it's a first place machine. Like some birds seem to have been like remain the same. Some birds seem to have gotten better. Some birds not so much. Like I had in closed beta, one of my best racers was starting to turn into a perfect U between A and B class. I would dominate B class almost every race, and then I would get in the bottom lower, 10 through 12 in A class and jump back and forth. I mean, I can't get a podium to save my life since open beta started with that bird. I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Not to and it just, we don't know, excuse me, not to FUD the birds that we know that have done well, and not to give up on our birds that we thought were good and have struggled. But, as far as
you all right?
Sorry, nope.
Take your water.
Excuse me.
Damn. When now it's me. Now it's me breaking down and not my internet. But as far as those mega birds go, I don't think any of them have anything more than a common talent. So that hasn't even come in yet.
Right.
Yeah. What didn't a big bird sell this week? One of those top winning birds that
Economics sold.
That's what it was. Yeah.
I think
so.
How much?
2 ETH. Yeah, I think it's a good. Yeah,
given what you've seen, I'd pay it. Yeah.
I mean, it's 100. Because it won. It's been raced plenty.
Yeah, so that's the thing that gets scary too, though, because Zed, they had a big change where they removed the odds and they went to flames, and this is August 23rd. The second that happened, they made some change to their system, and certain certain horses started performing a little bit differently than they had been. So buying something and paying up for it this early on is slightly risky, right? Because you don't know how well it's going to maintain its abilities, given that they're still tweaking and refining the game. So there is some risk, but I would be, I don't know. I would have, I'd pay up for it. I don't know if I would have bought Economics. But that, if someone gave me a good price on it, then you take it, because it's I said, that raw talent. It's been good. It's been dominating. What's to tell you that it shouldn't keep doing that?
It's to the same point. Selling is risky too, right? Because you don't. My fear is selling the bird that's going to go off and be a stud. I'll be like, oh my god, just
I had my highest ROI bird has been on the market more than any bird I've had. It just never sold. And now it's off the market because I've realized it's just a 90 Sarama, but I've figured out something on it and it's making a lot of money. So we don't know yet. The owner, the new owner of Economics, is actually in the Coop Collective chat. And they said, they've noticed that it's not quite the sure shot winner all the time, but they were just going to really try to hone in now. And with all that data, that is something worth buying. Yeah. Because just seeing all that data is pretty wild. Now, we don't know what to do with it yet, but that's got to be some semblance of a leg up having that data.
What would you rather buy? A bird that hasn't been raced at all, or a bird that has 100 races? I think you have a leg up if you buy a bird that has 100 races.
Well, that brings up an interesting point of just the difference between how there was a reason not to race your horse in Zed, and they've been pressing us since day one, saying they want these birds raced. Mm-hmm. So I'm at the point where I'm almost feeling more comfortable buying a bird that has data than not right now.
Yeah. A lot of people kind of like that unopened box, right? You don't know anything
the lottery
about
ticket.
It. But not even that too. You get to do the whole process from start to finish of having no races to okay, let me test sand, let me test snow. It's exciting and fun to test your theories. When the data's all there, you don't get to have as much fun speculating on what it could be. So that's the one difference.
But that testing costs money. And when you find out,
what do you mean?
Here's the.
I'm not down.
I thought I saw someone say in the chat earlier that a lot of the speculation on an unraced horse was because of the fact of that when breeding came in, that was kind of based off of the win percentage of the horse, and that if you had a 0 win percentage, that you would have possibly a higher chance of getting a better racer out of it because it's not a bad winning percentage. So I'm not very heavy in Zed. I've got one horse and it's a donkey, so
Yeah, that was one reason that people did it. They had like this theory that there's like, I think they call it like a snapshot theory of like wherever your class rating was at the time of the breed, that would influence it, but that's since been kind of ruled out. But I guess like you can kind of think of like an unraced horse as like an unrevealed NFT, you know, like how NFTs before reveal they're priced at a certain point, but the second everyone knows what they have, some go up in value, some decline and drop, you know, whatever, 10%, 20%. So I think like the second you put that horse in a race, if it loses, I mean, depending obviously technicalities and Zed, if you come in last, it might be a good thing. But like if you place seventh, you know, that kind of puts a damper on the price. Like you might, you know, take a hit on one race if it doesn't turn out the way you want it to. So there's always that part where you're kind of preserving the value of it. But now Zed's kind of changing to where they're trying to make breeding like future horses are supposed to quote unquote lap the existing ones. So like now the incentive to keep them untouched is much lower. And it's the same thing happens in chicken derby where, you know, over time, the abilities of the chickens are getting better and better and better as people breed more selectively and intelligently. There's no reason to keep your spicy chicken because it's going to get lapped by these new ones. You might as well run them now until before their time is done, kind of deal.
Well, one thing on that note that I thought was really cool, this is from long ago, this was months ago, they dropped this little nugget in the chat. They didn't rule out the idea that new characteristics, new traits could come from breeding. So and even possibly new talents could come down the line, which I thought was crazy. We speculated
on that and talked about that a lot earlier on.
That idea right there is wild. The idea that it's like now you can breed and get something entirely new and you be the first one with a brand new talent on the floor. Like that's wild. And now you have something you want to race.
You got a red-footed chicken.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows what it is? So
well, or just like
keep us engaged.
You breed a black chicken and a robot, and it comes out a black robot, or it comes out with pieces of a robot on the body and not a full robot, but the rest of it's black.
Like just the head. Well, I guess eyes, robot eyes. So if it just has
robot eyes, it's the comb, not the waddle.
The spike.
The spike.
Oh, that'd be badass. A black chicken with the spike.
The chest plate and the legs are what is the robot parts. But
give me a black chicken with the spike. They showed us
a tie-dye chicken. I want it still.
they've teased you about that one, obviously, with the tie-dye in the back. Yeah, they've teased you flat out.
Do I get tie-dye chickens if I breed a classic?
Yeah. Also, it looks like racing is back up and stable again. So just another tip of the cap to how this maintenance is always something quick. Usually it's the 5 or 10 minute maintenance that they just take care of and knock out. But even when these things get knocked offline, they seem to be able to jump it back on real quick. So that's awesome. I'll be up late again tonight, especially since I didn't have racing for the last couple hours. But yeah, I believe that once we really start seeing the talents, that part's hitting me in my head a couple of times over now. The more I think about it after Tyler talked about, that'll be the moment when people start really, I don't want to say investing, but that might be when the serious influx gets turned on, because now we can start looking at data and feeling a little more comfortable and seeing what's happening, not to mention just what's going to happen to Twitter once we can start sharing these things.
Yeah, once you can kind of start streaming, streaming races and getting people on top of it. Like once you have like again, these high stakes races, like that's what gets people really going. Like people love seeing like in Zed, the $500 buy-in pop off, watching that. Like a lot of people don't have the horses that can compete, but it's still fun to watch them. And you know, the people who own them, like it's still fun to like see them compete against each other at high levels. Like it's just going to be fun because I can see it turning into a similar type of, competition, but I think, the communities are going to be entirely different. So it's like the way people approach and interact with each other are going to be different.
Yeah. Well, that first big race we had, that first $100 plus race, everyone kind of ran to it to check it out and see. Yeah. And that was the aforementioned Memory Reset from Hems, won the first one and
first two.
Yeah, first two. I know. So it'll always got to be remembered. But yeah, I think you're 100% right on that. And here we are. I know Josh has it pulled up. This is, in fact, knowyourwallet.io. I'm sure everyone here has taken a look at it already.
And if you haven't, just go to knowyourwallet.io and it'll ask you to connect your wallet if you own chickens.
It's safe.
I mean, it's safe. Everybody, don't worry about it. But yeah, you just connect your wallet and it will pull up your Coop essentially, and then you can take a deep dive. In which I'm just gonna reveal the pain that is Casey Jones.
Oh, don't do this to yourself. The amount of text messages I have about Casey Jones going, it's such a shame.
It is, because he was my favorite bird in closed beta, and now I think he's my least favorite bird.
He's definitely
until next week, and then he's his favorite again.
Maybe. That's what I'm saying. I hope S-Class saves Casey. Because before closed beta, I had ran. I think it was close to like 95 races, and then since closed beta, or since open beta has ran, I was right around 100.
Yeah, that used to be a very profitable bird.
Yeah, this was almost a 0.06 ETH profit on this guy, and there were not very many of these 4th through 9th place finishes. He was shaping out to be quite the U. And actually, I should be able to. What's nice about this is you can filter. We'll go to B, and then I'll just go back. What was the 14th was the start time?
Yep, 14th was the start, correct.
Yeah, and I want to go prior to that. So
Tyler, when we jump on this page here, basically we are going to see a default in the future where it'll just be the beginning of open beta, or is it when talents hit? Or how are you going to segment both of those? I think you mentioned that before, but I just wanted to clarify that again.
I think we'll probably treat each thing as seasons in a sense. That's brutal.
Yeah.
Hang on. Even in A. I'll even show you how what he looked like just through, like, this was closed beta.
Oh, it's a shame.
It wasn't as bad, but it was. That was through A and B class, so he was competing. So I mean, that's the thing. Like I knew my I was hammering him on 160 tracks, and I was coming up like about 50% podium and winning at a very high rate usually.
Yeah, it was a B class monster. Yeah.
Yeah. Pain.
It's pain, but you can always go back to those days and then punch in those numbers and see the days that they were great.
These were the good days.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the tool is great, and like I said, once you can get this matrix to pop up when you start filtering, I think that it'll just excel the process even more. Because I mean, this is excellent. Being able to come in here and look at this, even just as the broad spectrum of everything. These are all the races just on road that I've ran him on, and it's. You start to see tendencies. Like once you start getting enough races in, like I think once you start hitting like the 10 to 20, you start to see some trends a little bit, and
right.
Some that
one thing I kind of want to do is turn that into like a heat map, but I wasn't sure what like that. I don't want to say something was cold after like 2 races, or say it's hot after one, right? Because like your eyes, it's tough to parse all that data. There's a lot of numbers there, but colors will help people let their eyes gravitate toward one terrain preference, or maybe
I like distance. That's big for me. I appreciate that because I can kind of get my eyes crossed sometimes just looking at the numbers here. But it's still, that would be anything like that to just make it jump out. But I understand the issue there. You don't want to call something cold after 5 races. Like that's just not
right. Like it might have just got unlucky, or it may have been stacked up against something that shares the same preference but is just better,
Right.
So like you don't want to say it's rule it out, but it just got outbeat by one that's similar, right?
That's why it's somewhat this. You have to almost filter it out and look between A and B class, because like we were saying earlier, it can be deceiving when you're looking through here and looking at all these races you've ran, because I would say that of the 60 some races I've ran in open beta, 55% of them have been in A class.
Yeah, we all got stuck.
Yeah, and it was a rough go there for a while, and where I couldn't figure anything out. So essentially, I'm still trying to figure this bird out since open, and now when talents get dropped in, I'm gonna have to figure it out again. And then when they add in all the cosmetic stuff, I probably have to figure it out again.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you're getting stuck in pecking order A. This is again same problem Zed has. Like class 1 ended up getting kind of dead because no one wanted to race. Like,
yeah.
Do you think that adding more classes is definitely the solution? Pecking order is more solution, Or is there like all the good birds in class 1, are they just grinding the $2.50 races? Like,
well, see,
why aren't they gravitating toward the $25 races if they can win it? Like, it just, you make more money faster that way. If you can win, why not win at a high clip?
A couple of the issues were just they're not filling. And right now, the people are just making, they know that we're trying to test our 94 Saramas and our 97 Sultans. And in the end, they really can't hang. But they can, like that, then they're just good enough. Like some of the ones that I have that are competing in A, they're just good enough to get second and third against the big birds. And then when they're not in there, they get their first place. And it gives you that little bit of hope, so you hang around. But you're right. It is kind of interesting so far. We don't see it. One of the issues is that there is no cooldown whatsoever. You can just spam over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
We probably need something there, because that's a bit of a problem to see these $2 races. Just be.
I think with the 5 classes, what it's gonna do is it's going to, like, I think those D and C classes are gonna fill a lot faster. People are gonna run their lower level birds. They're going to think that they have a chance to win now off those lower level birds. I think it's going to bring more overall birds to racing rather than with just 3 classes. Because with just 3 classes, again,
here's the thing.
I got a handful of birds that I'm not touching in B.
I have noticed that the C class has balanced itself out a lot better. You're seeing a lot more dorks and lacs. You're seeing most of them in the 94 to 90 range, and still yet. There are birds out there that for every race, there's going to be a winner and there's someone that's going to get last place. So when you have that bird like mine, for instance, so I'm pretty sure her pecking order is like 17. She's going to probably be a decent D class bird, and I'm excited for that. And I think
it can be a D class bird for a little while. Yeah, it doesn't just jump up to automatically. It's going to be at 17. It's going to be down there for a minute.
Yeah. And the B class has been a lot better, I've noticed as well. It's just really the A class that it's just been rough go for a lot of that mid-range birds. And I know people have been saying, like, why is my 95 Blackenveller starting in A class?
Right.
That I haven't raced some of my birds. I got my 95 Black and a 93 Sultan that I just once I saw they were in A class. It's just like, well, I'm not wasting money there.
Yeah.
I think also too, the 5 classes, they allow new people to get into the game a little easier too. You can buy a floor bird and race him and feel like you can compete.
That's the thing as well. Yeah.
I guess like the one issue we ran into is that I just wanted to quickly jump in. Like, people have found ways to rise and fall. Like, once you figure out your bird's preferences and the exact opposite of their preferences, right? Like, that they can constantly come in the podium if you're on snow, but man, they come in the back half every time they're on track, right?
Yeah.
So people find ways to manipulate it so that they don't go too far, and they're just beating up on the pecking order C's and D's. Like, so
that's
the one worry.
Yeah,
that you can kind of have.
I had brought that up in the chat earlier. Like, there will still be the U-shaped birds that are bouncing between A and S. And that's, there's still going to be some monsters that find themselves in A because they've figured out their bird where they do poor at in the super class, and they can just dominate a certain distance terrain in the A class.
What you won't find, though, you won't find an S class bird, though. I don't think it's possible for that S class bird to drop into C.
No, not C, but I'm saying like A.
I actually think it'll be hard for it to even stay in A, because right now, because if A really starts mapping itself out where, the low end Saramas and the mid to high Sultans and the high end Lakenvelders are all fighting with each other, when an S class bird drops in there, they should win pretty quickly. And okay, and that's part of the strategy.
Even on their worst track,
to drop in there, that's where you got to go to the highest, highest price race and go for it until you get it, and then you're back up again. So it seems hard for it to be able to do that, at least at this moment. And talent should make it have even more variance.
Right.
I have yet to see a bird that I think can win every race be able to lose just as many races. You know what I'm saying? I think if they're finding out what they've done good, they probably haven't found out what they've done bad at.
Well, that's fair.
They haven't had to, right? So,
a lot of these S-class birds that are going to be up there, they've kind of just been spamming, and I don't blame them. That's the game right now.
Money rolling in,
right? Yeah.
So
absolutely. I just think that once this gets implemented, we're going to start seeing more of those mid-range Saramas, those mid-range Sultans, and the higher dorks and lacs that they feel that are stuck in the A class and they should be in a lower class. That I think those will you'll start seeing them hitting the tracks more, because you're not going to see 7 100s in an A class race that just instantly turns you off.
And I mean, and the deal is too, I mean, the devs have shown time and time again that if there's something that's messed up about a situation, they're going to change it. So if they implement these 5 classes and it throws everything off, I can promise you they change it. Again, we're in beta for a reason, right? So they're trying things out too. Again, they're trying to differentiate themselves from Zed. So they're setting the groundwork on a lot of these new things that they're trying out as well. So
well, and the big thing is that while we're in beta, the best part is that they are listening to the people using the game. And that is the big takeaway from everything, is that we're going to be the first ones, not just us, but the community of Chicken Derby is going to be the first ones to tell them that they're doing something wrong. And they have been since the beginning.
They're not shy.
They're not shy. and they listen, and they take the tidbits and suggestions from the chat in the suggestions channel and the beta channel and the general chat, and they listen and they try to find a way to make it work, I feel like, for all. And this is case in point. They took the suggestion of the super class, we got it. The D class, we got it. And
on that note, Tyler said, why aren't we seeing these guys go after the big money races? So this is probably something I'll check and kind of run by Apex or Deli and see if they'll answer anything on it. But I don't know if we're going to have too many $2 and $5 S-class races once it's solidified. And I don't know if there should be. There probably should be once you get to that point. I'm wondering, obviously there will be some super high spot races that you can get into, but if there aren't that many of the lower ones, then maybe they do start chasing. They can't just spam the lower ones. The problem with that
is you can't have it too expensive, because then it's counteractive to you classing out. If you have that fair shape that jumps up there by mistake, and now I got to pay $20 to get him back out into B, then I just lost all my profit that got
fair point. Yeah.
Here's another thing too, is I don't think you can just have 3 or 4 birds dominate the S class. I prefer if they can, best as they can, make it track or distance specific. But you're seeing some of those birds that have ran recently, though, in those top levels that win on anything. They throw them out there. They're throwing darts out there, and they win on everything.
That's what I was saying earlier. That it's going to make those owners of those top birds have to pick and choose a little more and be a little more careful with what they're entering the birds in. Because it's going to be the best of the best all the time. And you'll see some outliers in there. There's going to be some 97s and 96s that jump up into S class because they've been doing really well in the A class. And that's going to be the reality. It's just those top end birds are going to have to be a little more specific on what they're doing. They're not just going to be able to pepper all A races and come in podiums 50% of the time. I just don't see that happening. And I think it's good.
You kind of want to incentivize them to be up there too, right? So you have to give them a reason to want to be up there. Like if you're on the cusp and you're chicken at the down button and you can eat up these $2.50 races, you might as well just keep hitting the down button so that way you can win consistently as opposed to go up. So one thing they could do to incentivize some of these bigger, better chickens they could do is remove the rake from the super class, right? So now imagine you have $100 buy-in, they're not taking their 9-10% or whatever. That's a little bit more money that you could be getting. You're not losing as much to them, right? So if you have to pay up more to go into the S class, one incentive to be there is you get just a bigger portion of the prize pool because they're not taking a cut from it. And that might be enough to make them go up there. So you have to force them to go into those. And you have to force the users, incentivize them to do the behaviors you want them to. If you don't have those things there, they're going to do whatever makes them the most money. We're all
Right.
A lot of people are doing it for fun, but a lot of people are also doing it to make as much money as possible. So they'll do whatever makes them as much money as possible.
And S class, you better believe that you either got lucky and minted something that's in S class, or you went and got it. And if you went and got it, then you spent some money to get it. So yeah, that's the first time I've heard that. There's been ideas of like maybe it's cheaper breeding if you're up there, or things like that. But that one right there, that in of itself, most of the races that are going to be ran are going to be in probably A, B, and C. So not having the rake up there, that shouldn't affect them that much. Not really. And it does definitely give you, that,
you could
10%. It adds up. Yeah.
You could even tier that out between all 5 of the classes, the rake itself.
Yeah. Even if they cut the rake in half.
S class has none. A class has like a 1%, and then just tier it all the way down to whatever they had, like 2 or 3%, I think.
That's a really natural way to do it, honestly. Yeah.
I like it.
I like that.
Because you want to make it just feel organic, so that way people do what is right. Like the second you start putting like certain limitations on it, people will feel targeted. Like people with like fatigue is something that came into Zed but was controversial, but then they rolled it back a little bit but still implemented it, because again, you don't want the same horses in every single race. Like you can literally just sit there all day long clicking buttons, and you're in 100 races a day. It's not fun to the people who are losing.
Right.
Let's just
so you have to like
the owner of the Diamond Hands, evil dude, right?
Grinding,
yeah. He's just like, I'm gonna enter that bird as if I'm awake, it's getting at race.
I get it.
I would too, man. Yeah, absolutely. That's just
you're 100% right. Like they should have, they have great birds, and they should have the opportunity to make that money. But if and we're kind of seeing that. We saw it in closed beta. People kind of got tired towards the end. Races stopped filling because it's like, all right, I'm tired of racing the same, literally 30 people. It seemed like sometimes. And then even right now in open beta, with the way it's set up now, the A races, we're just if I see one, I'm actually waiting to the point now where it's 10 or 11. And then I'll look at it and I'm like, okay, I'm going in this one because I don't see Diamond Hands, I don't see Chicken One, I don't see Win, I don't see all these bastards that I know are going to kick my ass if I go in there. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
I was just going to say, I think early on, it would probably slow things down a lot as far as like race entries go.
Sure.
But once we get down the road for breeding and the S class has more than 100 birds in it, and it's up to like say 1,000 birds are in S class now, and it's just starts the population starts to grow, and we start to see these classes grow in range of how many birds are being ran in them, then I think maybe that's when you start to see possibly some form of like a timer introduced, or like I think is it like 10 races, I think, and your horse is tired now and you can't have to wait.
It varies from horse to horse, but it's about like 8 to, it's probably ranges from like 8 to 12. But like, for example, like the one horse that I had early on, Vanilla Bean, I think like in a day I could have clocked like 80 races, because like I legit had friends on the West Coast who would stay up later than me just because of time zone difference. And then I would get up at the crack of dawn, do the early shift. He would do the night shift. Like we had 24 hours mostly covered. And like, there's no reason not to be doing that, right? Because you might as well, like it's working. Like you're not going to stop. I like seeing the profit and loss charts kind of go up and up. So you have to know like what people are doing and try to fight the abuse. Like I was abusing the system back then, but it wasn't against their terms. It wasn't doing anything wrong, but I was just doing what I'm supposed to do. I had a naturally good horse, so I'm going to just run it over and over.
The difference here, though, is there are different ways that it could be a cool down, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that your bird is locked in jail and you can't use it. Maybe if once, like this, they're going to have a metaverse. Like once you get to the metaverse, maybe you got to go roam around in the metaverse for an hour or something, and your bird is ready to go back out on the tracks or something like that, to where it's like, if you're not getting the people to shut the game off, but you are making them go do something else in order to be able to go back to the racetracks like they wanted to. I think that would probably work. And I mean, hey, everybody needs a break from being a degenerate every once in a while, right?
Do we?
No, you'd be surprised.
No, not really.
We'll just find another degen thing we're doing.
I need one forced on me sometimes.
The next degen thing,
I actually like these birds spamming them out. And like you said, I see nothing wrong with them. Why they let it go on? Because it's up to the devs to change the dynamics of the game, right? To balance and make more parity. But as much as your bird's winning, by all means, spam the shit out of them. Boom, 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 right? But eventually, you can't be mad when the devs, though, change whatever the dynamics to add more parity, and all of a sudden your bird doesn't win every single track.
As long this is where I'm going with that. That's
it's not
like a fatigue factor that nerfs your bird, but essentially you can't race for X amount of time. You're just on it, you're timed out for a little bit. Or
do you not like how Zed approaches it, where it's like the second you hit a certain threshold, you can continue to go, but you're going to not race at the full potential. So if you have like diamond hands, like
you get a nerf bird,
can still keep going, right? Like your first 10 races, you're fresh, but then after that, you're a little slower than you were before.
I don't
mind you can still win, but
I haven't used it enough to. I mean, I sat there when the class system changed like a month ago or a few weeks ago, and they released that new class system. I sat there and raced my 10 first races essentially to where I would get classed, and then by the end of it, my horse was tired, and it was like it did ask me that. Are you sure you want to do this? It's probably not going to do very well. It's like, well, you know what? I don't really care.
Yeah, I do know the devs have been pretty strong with the idea that there's no fatigue.
Right.
I don't know. And then obviously things could get put in there, but it does create a bit of a gaming element to it. Obviously you can't just keep writing that out. And maybe as there are more chickens down the line, then you can do that. Obviously with only the 33,000, I don't know if they want to shut down the ability for, just this crop to be able to get into the game. But I don't mind it because I think there's a gamification part to that. So I guess we'll see. But they do need to come up with something because it is a, hopefully the classes system will just kind of set this up to be a little better. And really, we just need more birds in races right now.
It's kind of a double-edged sword. You can't really have a fatigue factor or something that locks people out of races now, because now that we're expanding to 5 classes, those races aren't going to fill if they can't race after an hour.
Race your damn birds.
So that's why I'm saying down the road, once we get more population, once those classes expand, and there's 1,000 in the super class, then then you can have maybe you race 25 times a day, and you got to take a break or something, something like that. Or that's where I was saying, you drive them to the metaverse, make them go farm in their land or go do a fashion show.
Yeah, we'll see how much they really want to get into that part of it. Yeah, I know they've been big in it, and they've not held back on the amount that they've been pumping the metaverse and what they want to do there. So excited to see what exactly they have planned for that. And the options are really endless there. But this has been great. Tyler, really appreciate you coming on. This was a
thanks for having me. It's definitely awesome to kind of talk to people who are like so immersed into the game and see like what your theories are, where your heads are at. Because like coming from one game that's just built differently, has different nuances in it, it's kind of refreshing to go to a game where I know actually nothing about, trying to figure out what the different strategies are, where people are thinking, like what attributes and traits people think make sense. Like, does a U shape like a natural U and Z, does it exist in here? Like a lot of these things that just come as second nature. Like when I look at charts and look at data, like I have to take a step back and be like, can I assume that? I don't know. So it's fun to be able to do this and talk with you guys to see, where you're leaning, and it might help kind of guide the different directions that I go. Like I wasn't going to look at, aesthetics yet, but maybe there is something to look at sooner than later.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to get you back on here in a few months and pick your brain then and see after you've kind of had a chance to dive into some of the analytics of it and see what you think.
Everything I said 4 months ago, throw it out the window.
Yep, pretty much. That's probably
talents changed the game. Traits changed the game.
If talents change the game, then I'm never going to shut up, because then I'll be right. But
I'll just mute you.
Then you're going to be spamming your own birds.
And
then you'll be like, never a cooldown, never a cooldown.
Right.
Tyler over there pushing his own narrative.
Talents, they matter.
No, honestly, they do matter.
We'll say that, absolutely.
But if you are new to this and you are looking into buying a chicken and you maybe want to see if it's been raced, just pop in over at Know Your Wallet and check it out. That's knowyourwallet.io, and it's got about everything you need to know about any raced or unraced chickens.
Connect your wallet, get right in there, and
Yep.
checked out your roster. It's awesome. I'm in there all day just going through it. I guess the only thing I was curious is, will there be the ability to, like, and maybe I'm dumb and I haven't found it yet, to actually search for individual chickens?
Yeah, there will be. I haven't had that yet.
I figured,
because we're kind of housing a couple different games under this umbrella. I'm trying to make sure that the search is efficient and might be able to do it intelligently, where, like, if you're only part of certain games, like if I can detect that you own, say, a chicken NFT but not a Red Village champion, like maybe not show those things. So I'm still trying to think through what the right process is and
makes sense,
the right architecture is for it.
But one thing you do have, which is very nice and handy, is in the little drop down over here. You can go to the market tab, and you can go right to the Chicken Derby market
and check it right around.
Filter it by price, high to low, looking at the floor, newest listings. And that's where I'm saying.
Next improvement there, we got to get some stats and things like that, right? Like, I don't think I have anything that has to do with win percentage, number of races. At the end of the day, that's kind of what matters to people. Because right now you can filter by, like, the aesthetics, but if you're coming for, trying to make a profit, you want to see, like, okay, how much is the cheapest chicken that's won at 25% so far? Like, want to be able to kind of have that control over the filtering as well. But
a very abused tool in the future.
I even, and I'll be honest, I even like the inverse of that, because, like, this is the kind of game where it really is going to matter how you're managing your birds. And there's going to be some people that are going to just dump because they're going to be like, I hate this bird. Believe me, I've almost rage listed one of my birds so many times that it's a 97 Rama, and I shouldn't. It will be good. I just haven't figured it out yet. But yeah, that tool in there will, the more savvy user will be able to just kind of pick through that. And yeah, this is awesome. And I think you guys are putting on a really high quality product here, and just excited to see the next evolution of it.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
Again, thanks for coming on tonight, man. And we'll be glad to have you on at any point going forward in the future. Just be in touch, and appreciate you stopping by.
You know where to find me.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man.
Out on the tracks.
Before we leave, like and subscribe. Coop Collective.io. We have a Barnes that are still out there. 548, not a token.
So now I'm getting bulldozed by Blake instead of Tyler. Is that how this is?
Bulldozing you. You're not getting it.
You were closing it out with him. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, but I wasn't done.
I know, but you made it feel like you were done.
I was saying thanks to the guest, and I was going to get into my spiel.
We can't trust you, Josh.
A tear rolling down my eyes. You were telling him bye and everything.
You've got too much on your plate. We're just trying to take it from you, man.
Yeah. There's only so much you can fit under that hat. It's okay. I was just trying to help.
Thanks,
Coop
Blake.
Collective 548 NFT is available on OpenSea. You can look for that. Bid on a barn 0.05. It's owned by the Coop Collective. We'll accept it. That'll get you into the perks that is the stud barn and upcoming race tournaments. All that fun stuff for being a holder. Adding utility to a game that has a ton of utility. Love it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Check that out. If you're new here, like and subscribe to the show. Check out knowyourwallet.io. Also, you could solicit coopcollective.io. I believe Dave's got a new article about what we learned in closed beta that we'll be getting out this week. So keep an eye out for that. If you'd like to follow us, check us out on Twitter at Cock Talk Derby. I am at Grateful Coops in the Coop Collective Discord and Chicken Derby chat. I have MBF Express above me and Water Racing Coop on the left. And I believe it is TK at Know Your Wallet in the Chicken Derby chat, right?
Yeah, in the Chicken Derby chat, it'll probably show up exactly as is right there.
Perfect. I thought I guessed that correctly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And at Know Your Wallet on Twitter, correct? That's launching now?
Yep. Yeah, that's we haven't started building that up yet, but that's kind of where we're going to go. We'll put all product updates there. So as you see new things roll out, I'll announce them in the Chicken Derby channel, but I'll also put them on Twitter.
Yeah,
awesome.
Make sure you ask one of the mods to get the content creator role, and you can start dropping that stuff right in that chat. We put on had technical difficulties be damned. This might be one of the longer shows we've had in a while, so hope you all enjoyed. Like and subscribe to the show. Check us out. we're gonna get out of here.
See
Till
you
next
You
time.
guys have a good night. From the Coop Collective, we bid you adieu.